welcome in today's lecture of the surgery. Today's lecture of the surgery will be on the Coolidge fracture. Coolidge fracture. The Coolidge fracture, it is the fracture of the radius. It is a fracture of the lower end of the radius. It is one of the commonest fracture in the upper extremity. It particularly occurs in the old age. Its incidence of the fracture is in the old age, isn't it? And this fracture, the site of the fracture is that at the lower end of the radius, that is about within the 3/4 inch of the wrist joint. It means from the wrist joint 3/4 inch or 2 centimeters above the wrist joint. There. And associated with the inferior radioulnar joint and the relative displacement between the lower articulating surfaces of the radius and the ulna. It means what? That is injured to the inferior radioulnar joint, where radius and ulna join togetherly, it will also get injured, and the lower surface, articular surfaces of the radius and ulna also gets injured. In this case, it may be with or without the what? The tear of the medial collateral ligament of the wrist joint. Isn't it? There may be chances of the tear or injury to the medial collateral ligament of the wrist joint. There may be with or without avulsion of the ulnar styloid process. Means this ulnar styloid process makes avulsion. Where? From the wrist joint. Why? Due to the injury to the medial collateral ligament. But it sometimes present, sometimes it may not be present there. Then cause of the Coolidge fracture. The Coolidge fracture, as I already told you, that occurs in what? Old age persons, old age women. Why? Cause is that from falling on the palm of outstretched hand. Palm of the outstretched hand. It causes the fracture of the lower end of the radius in old age. As already we have seen in previous lectures, same injury. What? Falling on the outstretched hand in children causes the supracondylar fracture of the humerus, while in adult, same injury will causes the posterior dislocation of the elbow. And here, same injury is what? The falling on the palm of the outstretched hand. Isn't it? Outstretched hand. It causes what? The Coolidge fracture in the old age. Right? Because in old age, the lower end of the radius becomes weak due to the osteoporosis or osteoporotic changes, and that's why the same injury in old age, it causes the fracture of the lower end. Along with the fracture, there is supination of the forearm. Forearm is supinated. So that is the cause of the Coolidge fracture. Then nature of the Coolidge fracture. The Coolidge fracture line is transverse. It is often comminuted. Mostly it is a transverse. Transverse gets fracture. But sometimes it gets comminuted. But often gets comminuted or in the form of T, where the vertical limb of the T comes into the wrist. Means the transverse fracture, mostly the transverse, but sometimes or often it's comminuted, and when comminuted it is T-shaped. The one is its transverse limb and vertical limb. Vertical limb extends into where? The wrist. Extend towards the wrist. And then as the fracture is a transverse, as the fracture occurs through the spongy bone, and as there is an upward thrust, upward injury is there. Thrust will be the upward, because woman fall on the palm of the outstretched, the thrust is there. So during the fall, the lower fragment is usually impacted into the upper. So when the woman fall, the direction of the thrust or the force of violence is upward. So after the separation, the lower end may get what? Impacted into the upper end of the radius. Upper end of the radius. Then displacement. In case of the Coolidge fracture, the displacement is interesting is that. The displacement is that the typical displacement of the lower fragment. Usually lower fragment gets what? The displacement. And typical displacement is, you will see, one is a linear displacement and second is a rotational displacement. Linear displacement means what? The displacement that which takes place. The linear displacement is what? The displacement that which takes place where along with only one axis, this is a transverse axis, and that is what? Upward, backward, and the laterally. Means the fracture fragments goes upward, then backward, and then laterally. Do you understand? While the rotational displacement is around the vertical axis, rotation. In rotation, there is a backward tilt of the lower fragment or in the transverse axis, so that the lower articular surface of the radius, instead of looking directly downwards, it normally looks downwards and the backwards. It is due to what? The rotational displacement. It rotates here along with the transverse axis. Normally what happens? The lower end of the radius is looking downward. But due to this displacement, backward tilt of the lower fragment in the transverse axis. So what? Lower end, instead of looking directly downward, it's look downward and the backward like this. Isn't it? Due to this displacement. Second, there is supination of the lower fragment because of the force supination. As I already said, when the woman fall, there is supination is there. Slight supination of the forearm. And due to supination, the lower fragment is supinated, and that is a rotation along with that of the anterior surface of the radius with the long axis. As already told you, that is along with the two transverse and the long vertical axis. Here rotation takes place only around the transverse axis. Here the transverse and the vertical axis. So this is under displacement. This is a rotational displacement. Try to understand. This linear displacement is easier. The where lower fragment goes upward, backward, and laterally. But in rotational displacement, one rotation displacement takes place along with the transverse axis, second along with the long axis or the vertical axis. In the transverse axis, the backward tilt of the lower fragment, isn't it? Backward tilt of the lower fragment, isn't it? Where how does it get? So where articular surface of the radius, which one? Lower articular surface. It instead of looking directly downward, looks downward and the backward. And here there is supination of the lower fragments, isn't it? Supination, it gets moved like this in the outward and lateral direction. Then points of the importance, that which have to keep in the mind while the studying the Coolidge fracture. That is one is relative displacements of the lower fragment articulating surfaces of the radius and the ulna due to the injury to the inferior ulnar joint. The connecting ligament, including the triangular cartilage, are torn. Means there is injury to the wrist joint will be there and the radioulnar joint. First of all, the radioulnar, inferior radioulnar joint. Second, the backward tilt of the lower fragment disturbing the cognitive of the articular surface of the wrist joint. Third one, the supination of the fragment. So lower fragment is supinated. Then the old age of the patient and the tendency to redisplacement of the lower fragment. So these points should be kept in the mind. Injury to the radioulnar joint, then what? The backward tilt of the fragment disturbing the congruity of the articular surfaces, supination of the lower fragment, old age, and the tendency to the redisplacement. This point should be kept in the mind before managing or doing or planning the management of the Coolidge fracture, isn't it? The next, clinical features. The clinical features are there. The following are the clinical. The first, the patient, as already seen, is what? The patient is usually elderly and more often the females. Second, pain as usual in the fractures. The swelling. This is a swelling is a considerable. Is a considerable there, isn't it? Then limitation of the movements of the wrist joint. Limitation of the movement of wrist joint. Deformity. This typical deformity is there. Typical deformity. See this figure. That is dinner fork deformity. Dinner fork deformity. Why? Because as we have seen in displacement, the lower end of the radius, it goes backward, upward, backwards. So that's why it's causing like this one, dinner fork deformity. Here, as you see in this figure, here in X-ray, in this X-ray, see here, this is dinner fork deformity. This is where the radius and ulna. This is the wrist joint, and these are the off fingers are there. Here you get the fracture line, isn't it? This is the fracture line, transverse fracture. As already we have been seen there. This one, see this, and this dinner fork deformity, where the forearm is represent the handle of the fork, wrist bend, and the fingers that represent the tooth of the dinner fork, or teeth of the dinner fork, isn't it? So that's a characteristic and diagnostic point is that. Then there is a tenderness at the lower end of the radius as well as on the medial side of the wrist. Medial side of the wrist due to associated injury, isn't it? This tenderness on the lower part of the radius, is as well as around here. And then another one, that the characteristic of this diagnostic point of the Coolage fracture, that compare the styloid process of radius and the ulna. Styloid process of the radius and the ulna. This should be checked. So here, normally the styloid process of the radius, styloid process of, you can see your wrist joint, styloid process of the radius will lie at the lower level than that of the ulnar styloid process. But in case of Coolage fracture, the both styloid process, which one? Radial styloid process and ulnar styloid process, they may be remain at the same level, or radial process may goes above the level of styloid process. Is it? Do you understood? Do you understand this? This is a diagnostic. The two things are diagnostic. One is one is the deformity. This one fifth clinical feature, and the seventh clinical feature. Because this pain, swelling, limitation of the movements, tenderness, these are the common features of the fracture, isn't it? But here, which one? Deformity, dinner fork deformity. And what? Comparing the level of the styloid process of the radius and the ulna. Isn't it? Read it again and prepare yourself. And you can compare this in the figure. You can see in this figure. Here it is a radial process. This is the ulna. So here see the radial styloid process. This one is at the level, isn't it? And when displacement occurs, this process will come at the level of here with the ulnar radial styloid process, or it may display. In case of more displacement, it may goes above the level here, isn't it? So these are the diagnostic features. Which one? Dinner fork deformity and level of the styloid process of both radius and the ulna. Then next, the complications. The complications are there. Number one, malunion. It is very commonest. Malunion is the commonest complication of the Coolage fracture. Why? Because this will result in an ugly deformity and limitation of the palmar flexion of the wrist, and loss of pronation and the supination of the forearm if the malunion occurs. Then osteoarthritis of the wrist is also common. Osteoarthritis, isn't it? Then delayed rupture of the extensor pollicis longus tendon. This is also sometimes occurs. And then sudic atrophy is very common. Sudic atrophy of the bone is very common. Restriction of the movements of the shoulder, elbow, or fingers if active exercise is avoided. Means you have immobilized the fracture, and the active movements of like the shoulder, elbow, wrist, and the finger joint is not allowed, or exercise is not done there. The chances of what? This one, restriction of the movements are there, isn't it? So these are the complications of the fracture of the lower end of the radius, or which is called as a Coolage fracture. The next, is the treatment. By keeping these points that we have seen already in mind, then you have to do the or start the treatment of the Coolage fracture, isn't it? Nature of the fracture, old age of the patient, associated injuries, all these points should be kept in the mind, and after that you have to start the treatment, isn't it? And treatment includes number one, reduction, second, immobilization, and third is exercise. The first of all, reduction means whatever displacement has been occurred at the time of the fracture, that should be corrected by the reduction. And reduction of the Coolage fracture is carried out by closed manipulation under the general anesthesia. Under the anesthesia. See here, under the general anesthesia, a careful reduction should be performed, isn't it? And this is carried out the closed manipulation, and the steps are, the first step is to that disinfection of the fragment, because the lower fragment is impacted into the upper. But remember, not always, not always. In some cases, it may be impacted. If it is impacted, it should be disinfected, isn't it? But in some cases, as we have been seen, in linear displacement, it goes upward, backward, and laterally. Then correction is needed, that reduction is needed. But when impacted, fracture, it should be disinfected, isn't it? Disinfected. Then disinfection is achieved by the firm traction on the hand and the thumb. Contraction being effected by on assistance holding the arm above the flexed elbow, and then next step is a correction. Do you understand this step, first step? So gentle traction should be given. After you realize that, the surgeon has to hold the hand of the patient in his hand. Ask the assistant to hold the arm above the elbow should be flexed, and the gentle traction should be given downward. And the surgeon can use the thumb to keep it here, and gentle traction is given to the lower end of the radius. After that, the second step, the next step is that correction of the backward displacement and tilt of the lower fragment. This can be done by the fragment using the another hand and thumb and pushing it. The backward displacement should carry the anterior or forward one. Push the forward into that. As well as the lateral displacement and the supination. So as you have been seen, in this one, lateral displacement will be there. It should be also corrected by pressing with the thumbs. And where the fragment was supinated, it should be pronated by moving it like this, isn't it? Supination should be gets corrected, and this is the best achieved. The thenar eminence of the surgeon. Thenar eminence of the surgeon. One thenar backward pressure on the lower end of the proximal fragment for purpose of the convenience, and the surgeon's right thenar eminence is used to control the distal fragments of the left radius and the vice versa. So here the one thenar region of the surgeon's hand should be kept here, and another on the lower fragment to make the balance, and you should push like this, and doesn't all the movements of the proximal end of the radius, isn't it? After what? Giving the traction, this should be carried out by using the two thenar eminences of the surgeon. So that is the reduction. After the reduction, the immobilization is done, or immobilization should be done, and this will be done either with the complete plaster cast. If cast is used, must be placed on the dorsal aspect, because there is a tendency for the lower fragments to move backward, and the position of the limb should be pronation of the forearm and the little plantar of flexion ulnar deviation of the radial. So do you understand this one? Immobilization can be done either by using the complete plaster or the plaster cast. Complete plaster, you should extend it from the middle of the forearm, or maybe from the upper 1/3 of the forearm, isn't it, to the wrist here to the up to these eminences or to the hand, isn't it? Metacarpal eminences are here at this eminence, you to here, isn't it? And while immobilizing, you should remember that this fragment should be pronated, this forearm should be pronated, and ulnar deviation. Instead of the complete plastic, you can use the plaster cast. And this, when you use the plaster cast, the plaster cast should be kept on the back of the wrist. Why? Or back of the lower end of the radius. Why? Because the chances of backward displacement. As you have been seen, in displacement of this fracture also, there is a backward displacement is there. So to preventing that, the cast should be kept here. So remember, for the immobilization, the plaster is used. You can use the complete plaster or the plaster cast. Complete plaster is applied from where? The upper 1/3 of the forearm or from middle. But best to apply or start from the upper 1/3 to that of the below the wrist, isn't it? Up to your metacarpal bones. Or if using the plaster cast, keep on the posterior side there and immobilize it. And the immobilization should be maintained for the 6 weeks. 6 weeks, isn't it? And the plastering called as a Coolidge plaster, isn't it? But here the finger should be kept free for performing the movement. And ulnar deviation is very important. Pronation and the ulnar deviation is very important. This position in the immobilization. Then very important third one step in the management is exercise. Because it doesn't perform the exercise or not advised of proper exercise to patient, there will be chances of the limitation of the movements at the various joint, at the shoulder, at the elbow or wrist, even of the fingers. So that's why you have to advise the exercise to the patient. Active movements of all the joints of that have not been included in the plaster, which is shoulder, elbow, finger, including the thumb. A frozen shoulder is a rather frequent because of the neglected shoulder movements are there, isn't it? So fingers can be moved, thumb can be moved because the plaster is applied where? By around the thumb and up to here. The fingers, all the fingers, including thumb, they are free from plaster. So patient can perform the movements here. Even I have told you that plaster should be extended from here, so you can perform, or patient can perform the movements at the elbow also there and of the shoulder. That is very important. You must have to advise the patient this exercise, isn't it? Active movements, isn't it? Then, so this is the management over that, isn't it? Then treatment of the malunited fracture. Sometimes what happens? The fracture makes malunion. It's a very commonest one, complication. You have to do the treatment of it one. There is not much difficulty. There is not much difficulty except the deformity. It is better to live alone. Even though there is malunion, deformity is there, but there is no disturbances into the what movements of the wrist or in the activity. This should be live as it is. Don't go for the correction of it. But when there is a difficulty in the pronation and supination, means movements are the pronation and supination, excision of the lower end of the ulna usually gives good results, and patient is relatively young, active or corrective osteotomy of the lower end of the radius is advised in addition to the ulnar excision. In whom? In cases where the pronation and supination is not possible, then you have to do the surgical treatment. Isn't it? The excision of the ulna or the lower end of the radius in young patient. Then if there is a considerable limitation of the palmar flexion here, palmar flexion of the wrist, palmar flexion of the wrist, this corrective osteotomy of the lower radius is advocated. If the patient cannot do this flexion here, palmar flexion, then the radius should be excised. But this is needed rarely. If the patient can perform the movements, then there is no need of the doing the surgery there. Then here it is a Coolidge fracture we have been completed. Now next one, small fracture is then Smith fracture. The Smith fracture, it is what? The reverse to the Coolidge fracture. Reverse to the Coolidge fracture. It occurs from falling on the back of the wrist. Why is it called reverse of the Coolage fracture? Coolage fracture occurs while falling on the palm of the outstretched hand and causing the displacement where? Upward, backward and laterally. Why this fracture occurs? The fracture of the radius is there. Fracture of the lower end of the radius is there. It occurs from falling on the back of the wrist. And this is what? The displacement you will see that. The forward tilt and the lower fragment resulting from the fall on the back of the hand. Isn't it? Do you understand? The Smith fracture is also the fracture of the lower end of the radius. It is reverse to that, which is always called as the reverse to the Coolage fracture. Why? Because it occurs from the falling on the back of the hand. When the person fall on the back of the hand, it causes the fracture of the lower end of the radius and causing the forward tilt of the lower fracture end or lower end of the radius here. Forward tilt of the lower fragment, resulting in the fall on the back of the wrist with the flexion. Isn't it? So this is Smith fracture. But important is what we have is the Coolage fracture. The Coolage fracture is one of the important fracture, which is commonest fracture in the upper extremity. So you should remember the cause. First of all, it is common in the old age, especially in the females, caused from falling on the palm of the outstretched hand. Later we will explain the clinical features, complications, and the management. Management includes what? The reduction, immobilization, and the exercise. Don't forget the exercise. Exercise is very important. That's all. Thank you for watching the lecture. Try to prepare yourself.